Yes, I'm just, Mr. Chair, just more kind of confused on process. Everybody's been talking about process through this whole thing. And the last petition gatherers, voting theater, once the people met the burden of 15,662 petitions, and then the supervisor of election certified them, and our clerk verified that they did have met that benchmark to us, the council. We ordered a workshop to try to work on similar things just like this and additional questions. And I don't know why we're here trying to change what's on their the petition that they've gathered, and also why we're trying to add things at the 11th hour when in fact the process is not really even followed. I don't think the clerk might clarify for me. Has a 15,652 signatures on the check?
No, we expect clarification.
Now, I looked at it, it's 13,222. The 91% approval rate on each petition, which is 9 out of 10, are good, and they have approximately 5,000 left. So I know they're going to make it. I'm just curious as to the procedure and why the rush and why we're doing all this agenda review and trying to have first readings. We haven't even had a workshop.
Number one, you have to have first reading to get, you have a deadline to get it on the August.
So by June 6th, they'll have to, I think they will, I think they'll get them on the count. I believe they'll be done.
That's my expect, even if you don't have it by June 6th, I would go ahead and first read it.
I can understand that with
You could always, you know, if they don't meet the burden, you don't have to put it on.
I can understand that with A and B, where my problem lies is with C. As you, I'm just, it's my problem. I'm about Councilman, where my problem lies with C. I have no problem doing a first reading on A because they will meet it. I mean, they had 91% per petition approval rate. So the balance of mine is 5,000 and 91%. And then make it up to 100. I doubt that ever happened.
There's a desire of council to have additional questions on, because there's a desire, we may want additional questions, you pass it on first reading. We made the final decision. Public hearing will be 2 weeks following the 20th. So you can allow that opportunity to continue or not.
See, the problem,
It's up to council.
the whole problem I have is that this whole thing started in 2010 with a straw poll vote in this very room. The straw poll vote was 5-3. And I remember that was yesterday. Councilman Kennedy, Dudley, and myself was voting against tearing down the pier. And at that time, the mayor, once he got the 5-3 vote, he said, I got what I needed, and he was out the door. And that's when all this started. And it started with a straw poll vote. So I have a problem adding something to the ballot, because back in 2010, I asked the council and the mayor to put something on the ballot, and we didn't want to do that. But now that all this blood, sweat, and tears went through, now we want to come up with some fictitious, non-binding questions to throw in there. But I mean, if we're going to be doing that, if the body is if that's the will of the body, I hope they would add refurbish the existing pyramid that we have out there, which is what the original $50 million for.
Woo!
You can always suggest that as an additional question.
Let me ask,
That's just my opinion, it's one council.
let me ask another question. If we were trying to think of chaos reduction, we're kind of, you know, that's kind of where we are anyway, but if we were to put something on the November, if we want to put something on the November ballot, that is to say, let me assume for a moment that you want to lay something out so that if the land is defeated, you have questions. You then follow that with, well, what do you want us to build? And I know you can't ask the question that way. What is the timeline that we have to start that process?
Almost immediately.
So the ballot language would have to be provided to the supervisor elections. I think the 27th or the 28th of August. Basically right around our primary.
That's
2 months.
Well, and part of what I'm trying to think of is that just assume for a moment that lenses work out for the sake of this. you really do want the people who voted for the lands to then essentially pick their second choice. I'm not sure that, I originally thought trying to do them all together would work. But the more I think about it, the more I'm afraid that it gets jumbled up even more so.
It's entirely up to council if they want to do this template. So they're just going to find out what direction to legally want it.
And if I could, and read the memorandum that John Wolf sent to you May 23rd. You may choose to place none, all, or some of these questions on the ballot for the August 27th, 2013 primary election. The decision is purely up to the city council. These are merely suggested topics that I have received, etc. On August 2nd of 2012, you considered questions that were proposed. I think I proposed 4 or 5 questions that could have been placed on the November presidential ballot, and it was voted 6-2 no. So if the same thing happens a year later, the sun comes up the next day and we all enjoy the fruits of our labor. So these are things that I looked at hearing public testimony. You've got some people for building a new St. Pete pier, some people against building this one. But I kept looking at, or listening or dissecting who's behind the people in the red shirts? And I kept saying that some people were stopped the lens because they wanted some type of private development. And we heard that a couple of times, not a majority, but how many times have you been in Walmart or Publix or Home Depot when somebody said, hey, I got a great idea for you, why don't you build a boutique hotel? I think we probably, or I've had others that say, why don't you make it a casino, or why don't you put nightclubs out there? We've all heard it. Some people come and say, and there's a lot on the Stop the Lens website about the money and the bonding and how can you borrow $50 million? So there's another mindset of not spending the money at all. So, and then there's kind of the third that wants something, a more traditional pier. I don't know what that is, but a more traditional pier. So these are merely things that as you try to dissect who's where, to get a straw vote in it. Again, I lost 6-2 a year ago. It's completely up to the city council for discussion. But I always like to take advantage of referendums when you get a chance. Which is why I said what I said on August 2nd of 2012.
Is he supposed to be talking to me? I thought he said he wasn't going to talk to me.
The mayor is correct in that meeting 12. The only part of that fact was there was a workshop that we came out and fully vetted all those questions that were suggested. Some came to me, some of you came vis-a-vis a former council member that sent questions to us. Some came from people that's known now the concerned citizens. We sat around this table, and I think in the end, and even legal provided some questions to that. But in the end, I think Councilwoman Curran and Councilman Gavin were right. The verbiage that we had should be put forth the way it was, and that failed 6-2. That's all I was getting at. What I'm saying now is, you bring up a good point as of November, because unless this petition then they got plenty of time. I think until August 2nd, you get the question, or whatever question you want to put in, a straw poll or deep poll or whatever you want to poll, and then you can go from there. But the problem we have now is that the first petition is not over 20,000 signatures for the same people. This one is over 20,000. There's 41,000 registered voters that have signed their intent to have a vote on this thing, on what happens on the water. We can mix mingle all we want, but at the bottom of it is people who want the right to have a vote. And that was not given to them way back in 2010. That's why we're sitting where we're sitting now. And I think that if they met the burden and they got a petition that legal said it was be viable and would be good consideration for the ballot, we should do just that. All this other stuff, I think it's, like you said, it's convoluted and added, but you do have the time after that, depending on the outcome. Like you said, I think your vote, if it was well clear, and concise direction once the people vote. And then we can go with that to the question they want. We can vote November 8th, it's a long time.
Will you give us a hard date as to when we have to have those?
You would have to actually start the ordinance prior to the vote.
Jeff?
So on the sixth, when we get to this part, someone will move to adopt 5A. If it fails, we have to adopt 5B.
Well, you have to first
Right.
mention.
So we have to first read it?
Yes. The ordinance places it on the ballot with the question.
Yeah,
And I
but what we decide on the sixth will go on to the public hearing for the second. So if we decide not to do 5A, that won't be on the second reading. Right?
I'll have a resolution ready for you saying that you have no intention of passing.
One or the other. And then C, how do you,
If you first read that on the sixth, you can have a workshop between the sixth and the 20th and do whatever you want. And then on the 20th, you can vote down. Question usually, take questions now.
So you would-
It's up to
you
you.
could first read C with questions to be determined?
The title is broad enough, it says yes. The title is broad enough that you could add different questions.
I'd like to correct the date that the language has to be correct. It is the date of the election, June 27th. We just verified it.
That's for the general.
That's the current.
What did you say? I couldn't hear it. The ballot language has to be approved on that day.
We could do C.
Which
Oh,
date is
yeah.
this? 27th
With
August.
what you proposed in C, could you change the date to November 2nd, or would you need to start over on something? Because of notice.
You need to start it.
Okay. Whether it's not.
Oh,
I have a question for you.
I think his job is hard for him.
Charlie was next. Steve.
I was gonna say, if you bring a resolution to the meeting next Thursday declining to adopt ordinance A, I'll move approval of that before you first read. Okay, that should pass 8-0. That resolution should pass 8-0 because we all want people to vote. So if you bring that, then we won't first read A.
Okay. If we,
And we'll first read B.
I'll distribute that as,
And the next question I had was, the deadline to get this language to the clerk is June 28th, right?
correct.
Which is 60 days before the primary.
What language are we talking about?
The language for the August 27th referendum.
Yes.
The deadline is June 28th, which is 60 days before the election. Why would it be 90 days before the general? Why wouldn't it be the same 60 days? So the deadline would be September something.
Actually, it's not. The date is between September, October. November, our election is early November, so that's basically.
Right, so I'm saying if the deadline for this one is June 28th, that's 60 days before the election, right? 60 days before the general is September.
Now, if we have to submit the language at the end of August,
September?
September, October.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 2 months.
The language for the November ballot is August 27th. September, October, so it's really the same 60 days. I don't know where you.
why wouldn't it be all of September and all of October?
It is.
And November 3rd for the vote. Yeah, same thing.
The supervisor sets the date, we can check with the supervisor and see if there's anything.
It's basically the same 60 days.
Well, it's about 65 or 60.
Yeah, it's like 65 days.
You'd still have to start the ordinance before.
And I believe,
Okay.
Steve was next, then.
Yeah, I have a couple quick things. One, Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend that we move this up on the agenda which I'm sure will be there in large numbers. I think it'd be nice to let them have their chance to speak and hear it.
Yes, it sounds good.
Or this has to be, first readings have to be at 9 o'clock, right?
Maybe not the council.
Well, actually, if we, that'll happen approximately, that'll happen.
Okay.
What form do you have?
And then I just really want to stress that we need to think through this issue. Because we won't want to set precedents that will have future effects that will not change. And John, my question to you is, have we ever taken a citizen's ballot and then rewritten it and then put it on the ballot with our word, title or question?
Now, we've only had one initiative. Now it's been strong there.
Okay, and let's think about that for a second. Take out the emotion that's surrounding this here and what's intent. And is it a good idea to say, because this is not just about here, we're setting precedent. We're setting a standard of how we do things. And I can see a lot of negative effects to saying the city council and the mayor and the city attorney can rewrite the citizens' ballot initiative. Aside from the fact that I think I heard a judge say pretty clearly that it's not legal for us to do that it's not a legal, or that there's not a legal requirement, is what I heard it say.
Well,
You know,
it's true, it's not legal to do that. Joe can speak.
Yeah, I would just, all I do is just repeat what I said before, the advice council, the last thing you want, I mean, if let's assume that it's, as Chair said, let's assume the stop the weapons petition wins, the last thing you want to do is some sort of collateral, out of open collateral attack because of the city had changed it or some other thing. I would just advise council, their language is their language, and it wouldn't be up to the city. The city should not, legally should not change that language.
and I think there's legal reasons for it. I also think there's, even if it was legal to do it, I don't feel it's a good idea because, as Mr. Whaley said to council, you can do it this, you can do this, you should go ahead and do this. If you don't, we're going to get our petitions, we're going to force you to do exactly what we want anyway. I think that's almost, I may not be a word-for-word quote, but that certainly was the intention of what he said. And so then for us to sit up here and say, well, we're going to just reword what you wrote, I don't think that's the right thing to do. Because down the road, it sets a precedent where city council can rewrite citizen petitions. The idea of a citizen, the purpose of a citizen petition is for the citizens to have what they want put on the ballot. I don't see any good, I think down the road that could create repercussions on a situation that none of us even knows right now.
Creates law.
Well, it could create that, but it also could create a situation where other people say, well, we have a history of doing this, it's been done before. So, and that could lead to some very negative effects. It could lead to some things that we may agree on an issue, but then other people get to rewrite it, that down the road. And I don't think the city council, I think the city council should write ballot language that they are putting on the ballot. I don't think the city council should write ballot language, title, or ordinance that the citizens are putting on the ballot. I think the citizens should write that. And they have, and it'll go on the ballot. But I think there's repercussions beyond the pier when you start setting precedent like that. And the idea of a citizen's petition is for what the citizens want, worded the way they want to go on the ballot. I'm not going to support the city council rewriting that. I don't think that's fair. That's all.
Okay, let me be clear from the scheduling then. Meeting starts at 8:30. We do the public hearing at 9 o'clock. Try to get people who want to speak on one of the public hearings to speak during the public hearing portion. And that, if we can do that, that'll give us a little bit of time between 8:30 and 9. And we've got both F1 and F2, but we've got folks coming, including the police chief. We'll try to get those done before we get to public hearings, but as long as most everybody who's coming to speak is gonna be coming for the pier anyway. We can just get them to speak at pier time, this will work out. Well, I'm saying that on open forum, if somebody comes to open forum and they want to talk about something that is on, it's already on one of the public hearings, we'll then ask them to speak at the public hearing rather than an open forum.
We can't dictate open forums on any item, other than the president.
Other than a public hearing. If it's a public hearing
Right.
item, and we only have one public hearing, they have to speak to it when the public hearing is public hearing.
So we can censor, open forum if you got items.
No,
That's the only-
I'm not, I'm asking a question. I mean, if the item on the agenda and people are not provided, allowed to speak in open forum on that item, is that what we're saying?
When council passed their resolution, the resolution states that they can speak to anything on the agenda other than quasi-judicial
Right.
or public hearing, in which the public has to speak when the item comes up on the agenda.
Okay, now, open forum, I'm talking about open forum. The word open and forum, I'm just trying to figure out, they can speak on anything that they want on open forum.
Except for those two items.
So we dictate what they can speak on.
Well, not, only when they speak.
Well, open forum is open forum. I mean, I can speak about whatever I want to open forum, right?
But if it's on the public hearing, it starts about 9 o'clock, they would speak then, not at quarter to 9.
The presence of that open forum, and the reason we moved it from the end after we go there into the beginning, so that people that work, they didn't have to go this up first and get back to work. I think making them wait until we get to, the peer thing to speak on the peer, if they don't have the ability to wait, I think it's, being unfair, and with Tricia and different wars, we talk about open forum, you're gonna tell them what they can speak on in open forum?
Actually, next is general menu. Yeah, go ahead.
I get for, Steve, you mentioned the only addition was strong. That addition was actually wrong. New, whole new